that I would not be saying anything bad about him in this bio. But a little background on Mike Jones. Mike Jones Jr. was appointed as General Counsel to Alabama Secretary of State's office in January 16, 2023. He's a graduate of the University of Alabama School of Law and has been a practicing attorney for more than 3 decades. Mike was first elected to the Alabama House of Representatives in 2010, where he served as the Rules Chairman for the last 4 years, while also serving as the Energy Council on the Energy Council and the Alabama Law Institute Family Law Committee. He previously served as the Chairman of the Judiciary Committee, where a large percentage of legislative bills are heard. Mike served as Chairman of the House Impeachment Committee that investigated former Governor Robert Bentley. He also served on the Alabama Sentencing Commission and the Criminal Justice Oversight and Implementation Council. 2016, the Family Law section of the Alabama State Bar selected Mike as Attorney of the Year. Mike resides in Andalusia, where he served as a municipal court judge from 2008 to 2023. He and his wife, Kathy Harper Jones, have 2 daughters, Olivia and Sophia. They attend First Baptist Church, where Jones serves as a deacon. And I might be a little bit biased, but Mike is the best general counsel the state of Alabama has ever seen in the Secretary of State's office. So give him a round of applause.
Yeah, he's a little biased. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak. And as I said earlier, Wes had fully intended to be here, but one of the many reasons why Wes and I get along so well and why we're working together is family's important. And when family's got things going on, you've got to prioritize that, and he does. And so when he asked me, would I mind speaking on his behalf today, I was like, no problem, I'll take care of it. You go take care of your family. So, and he does the same with everybody in the office, and that says a lot about the person. And I have to give a little bit more of a plug for Wes on a couple of reasons, aside from the fact he's my boss right now. I got to work with Wes when he was in the House. And so I saw him when he came in, he was a freshman, and there were a lot of freshmen that came in with his class. And like all classes, there's always a few that stand out, that just have sort of a feel to them. Wes was one of those. And so Wes allowed me to work with him some as he was in the House. As Rules Chairman, it allowed me opportunities to work with a lot of good members, a lot of freshmen that came through. And so when Wes called me after he was elected Secretary of State and asked if I'd be his General Counsel, honestly, I don't know if I was expecting the call or not. I just sit there and thought, well, that's actually a good fit. I think that would probably work. And so it's really been that easy. One of the things I want to say about Wes as well is, when you come into office, you really don't know what you have until you enter that door. And when you enter that first day you enter the door, you see what you have to work with. But the most important part of taking on a job like this is picking your team who's going to work with you and be a part of every day that you're at work. I give great credit to Wes. He picked an extremely talented team, and more importantly, the team works well together. And for those of you who work in government or any other field, how rare is it that you get a full team that actually works together in sync and they like each other? And there's not that constant inner politics going on that a lot of different places have. That says a lot about Wes, is he picked that team personally. And so I think that's important. That's something that I look at as a good indicator of our leader. As far as speaking today, when I was told I was going to speak today, I really didn't expect everything to be happening the last day or two that's been going on. So as General Counsel, I do a lot of things. Obviously, the primary duty I have is I'm the Secretary's lawyer. And so if he needs anything at all, I'm the person who comes to his counsel, his legal issues, whatever. I also oversee some things within our office as well. And obviously, if we're in court for anything, then I play a role in that as well. And in case you were unaware and have totally been deaf in the last few days and blind, we've had this little federal case going on that involves congressional matters. And so that's been very active. I'll speak to it here briefly here in a moment. That's obviously ongoing. It's not finished yet. There's still another hearing to go, and I'll speak to that in a moment. But it's kept us very active today. On top of that, we also have 2 special elections, primaries going on today. And so I'll speak to that briefly in a moment as well. So it's a pretty interesting day, to say the least. Two things before I move into the topics. One, for those of you who do know me, there's quite a few in the room that I've worked with in the past or I've gotten to know over the years. And some of you already know this. I've cut my hair every 2 weeks of my life in 30 years. And when I came out of office in 2022, my youngest daughter, who is now 19, had never seen my hair because I've always kept it so close and so tight. Everybody thought I was in the military for all those years. And Brian, I think, was actually shorter than yours, so for all those years. And she said, "Dad, I've never seen your hair. Would you let it grow?" Well, when your daughter asked you that kind of question, I was sitting there thinking, well, I've got no reason to really worry about it anymore, so yeah, I'll just let it grow. And so I have not had a haircut since January of this year. I have not done one thing to my hair other than let it grow. That's it. And so the photo that y'all saw that was sent out, that is me. It is the same person. It's just that I did have my hair cut for 30 years that way. The other thing my daughter asked, and daughters are good at this, you know, they always pose those things on us that make us look at ourselves and start kind of thinking about things. My daughter asked me about this new job, and she said, "Well, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I send out hate mail." And she was like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, if anybody violates the FCPA, the Fair Campaign Practices Act," I said, "I'm the one who signs every one of the violation letters, and so it's basically I send hate mail all over the state." And she looked at me like, "And you like this job?" And I said, "Well, that's not the only thing I do." That's one. I actually love the job. There's over 1,000 references in the code of the Secretary of State's office. If you got the code of the Constitution, it's enormous what that office does. And the variations of what this office touches is enormous. And so to say that anybody knows everything in all things of the Secretary of State's office, you're constantly learning. And that's one reason I love this role. So those of you guys who've been judges and are in appellate courts now, that's part of the fun of these jobs. Is there's not a day you come in that you don't pick up something new and you learn something new, and frankly, that's why it's interesting. And that's kind of how this role is for me. So I really enjoyed the job. As far as, I'm going to go straight to it because I don't want to run out of time before we get some of these issues. As far as what's happened, so this is what you're all reading about and seeing in the news right now. This is the report it's the report of recommendation of the special master. And so the 3-judge panel that was ruling on our congressional maps, and specifically it's been ruling on our 2023 special session maps that were voted in and adopted by the legislature and then signed by our governor. That map is no longer, and the court has determined that map did not qualify as containing the opportunity district that is required by this court, and apparently by the Supreme Court as well. And so, based on that, the 3-judge panel appointed a special master and a map maker to start working on maps, and gave a very relatively short period of time, roughly about 3 weeks, to come up with 3 maps, not one map, but 3 maps. From the 3 maps that were designed by the special master and the map maker that was appointed by the 3-judge panel, the panel will then pick 1 map. And so we have 3 maps. Now, as Republicans, it's like picking the least of the worst. I mean, there's really not a good map. This map is intended to create another Democratic district. That is clearly the intent of it. Out of the 3 maps, map 1 has 2 majority-minority districts. And so that means they're both over, both District 2 and District 7 are over 50%. The maps 2 and 3 are 1 majority-minority district, that's District 7. And District 2 is an opportunity district, which is not over 50%, but it's very close to it. It's 48.5 or 48.7%. The intent clearly is to create an opportunity for a Democrat to be elected. And I say Democrat, and that's how I always look at this, and have always looked at this. I've really never looked at this as a race issue, and it never has been. I've never even heard that discussed in meetings when I used to be a part of some of these same conversations. It's always been about R's and D's. That's what it's always been about. But this is it's been linked into a race issue. The real strategy of this has nothing really to do with Alabama on our own. This is a national strategy. We're not the only state going through this. There's roughly 7 states experiencing the same fun we're experiencing. We just happen to be out front. And we're the ones getting kind of pommeled with some of these rulings. So the real strategy and the real goal is to take over Congress and take back the House in DC. That's the goal. And right now, it would not take many changes, roughly I believe 5 seats is all that has to change for the Dems to come back and power in the House. So that's what this is really about. I don't think there's any really disguising as far as I'm concerned, but you don't hear that, you don't see that when you're reading these orders. There's no mention of that. That is the real strategy. As far as where we stand, we're still reviewing the report. I think I've read it 3 times. Every time I've read it, I've found something new and different in it. And if you're like me, judges, you live with highlighters, and I think I've now got at least 5 colors, go branching out all over the report. We have one more hearing coming up. It's on October 3rd. The 3-judge panel basically stated in the order, that hearing would happen if necessary. So we're not sure if that means if they just decide, hey, this one looks obviously the one we're going to pick, and they're just not going to worry about the hearing, or if they're going to have some interaction with the parties. I will say this, and I was in Birmingham when this was argued a month or so ago. One of the things that I thought was interesting right away is, we're having a legal argument before a 3-judge panel. The real fighting was actually the infighting between the Democrats. Is that they all had very different interests on which maps they wanted because of all the different Democrats who want to be the next congressman. And so you start seeing that come out really quickly. And so one day one group would argue, the next day another group would argue, and their arguments were 180 degrees apart from each other. And that's really a big part of this reality. Once again, this is really not about as much race as it is about Democrats trying to gain leverage and position to get another seat. That's what this really comes to. October 3rd, if that is needed, then the court will hear arguments as to why the parties are for or against, and then they'll make a decision. I will tell you this, when the court asked our office, Secretary of State's office, when do you need the maps? We actually told the court October 1st. Because we've started backing in our deadlines that we have to meet both at the federal level and within our own state. And there's a lot of things that are in federal law and in federal code and in state law that we had to make sure we have time to meet. And you also have to back into that if there's any changes in the map, then the Board of Registrars in those counties have to make those changes. Well, out of the entire state, only about, I believe, 12 now that have GIS already in place. Only about 12 out of 67 counties have a GIS or a system in place which would make it easier to mapping and electronic mapping to make these changes. Most of them are still doing it old school. They're literally going down the map and looking at a hard map, trying to figure out if someone on one side of the line or the other side of the line, and it's really difficult. And you can probably speak to that. It is not fun when you're on that side of the table. And so it's a very slow process. And so that's part of the variable that we've had to tell the 3-judge panel is if you start dividing counties and if you start making changes on district lines, then that means a lot of board of registrars are going to have to do a lot of shifting. And especially these registrars that don't have any computerized assistance, it's going to be very timely. It's going to take some time. You add into that is you've got a new administration, which means you also have a lot of new boards, a lot of new registrars. And so I think roughly is it 35? So 35 new registrars in the state. That means if any of them happen to be the lucky ones that are in these counties that have splits, then they're not only having to do the job, they're having to learn how to do the job while they're doing the job. And that's another variable that they're having to deal with. So as you can see, every day we go past October 1st without knowing exactly which map we're to use and pushing that out to these registrars in all the counties, it's that more difficult to get it in place before the election cycle. And we also have to worry about our soldiers and our sailors overseas, is that we have certain dates to be able to give them the ballots and be able to vote in time, which is way in advance of everybody else. And so this isn't something we can wait right up until the time of the primary. We have to do a lot of this well in advance. So it's, it is a time issue. So right now, there's a hearing on October 3rd. I hope the court makes a very speedy ruling, if for no other reason, to allow the registrar's time to work. Now, this brings me to sort of the next issue. One of the things that you may have been hearing about that our office has been interested in is the term ballot harvesting. And it's a term that has, you probably hear it in a lot of different contexts. We did look at a bill last season, and we have since had a bill pre-filed in the Senate as SB1. Senator Garland Gudger is the sponsor of the bill, and it's for ballot harvesting. Prior to really now, this has really been a Democrat issue. And so, you know, one of the things we heard last session is that there's no evidence of ballot harvesting being an issue in Alabama. And I heard that all throughout the regular session. That's simply not true. So those of you who worked with me in the past know that I am very data driven. I look at details, I look at numbers, because that's where you find facts, not just political gibberish. And so one of the things I did as soon as I became general counsel and started looking at this issue is I went back at past elections and started pulling data and looking at primary elections and looking at anomalies that were showing through the numbers. So I'm going to give you some examples, and this is the, I know this is weird, I've got to take my glasses off to read, but these are some of the numbers. So in the 2022 primary season, statewide, the absentee, statewide average for absentee ballots, or percentage of the total ballots, was 2.9%. So 2.9% of the total ballots in the state of Alabama came to absentee ballots. That's the statewide average. Okay, so that doesn't seem that much. That's not a big deal. That seems like the number you would expect. All right, here are 4 counties that I want to give you some numbers on. Bullitt County, the absentee ballot average was 13.4% of the total ballots cast in that election. Lowndes County, 13.7%. Wilcox County, 17.9% of all ballots cast were absentee ballots. Perry County, 21.6% of all ballots cast were absentee ballots. So just so you understand, so even those lower ones, of the double digits, they were over 4.5, almost 5 times the state average on the absentee ballots. Perry County was 7.5 times the state average. So basically, 20% or 1 in 5 of everybody who cast a ballot was casting it absentee. Now, that is so far away from the state average that it's obvious what it is, and it's hard to not see it. And these numbers are consistent. Now, what is also consistent is these are 4 primarily Democrat locations. And when I looked at the total numbers of Republicans voting in those locations and Dems, they're primarily Democrat. And so for some people, as Republicans, I think the concern was, well, is this really an issue we need to be worried about because it's mainly a Democrat issue? Okay, well, that's changed. So now that we're about to have a congressional race in the state where you're going to have a general election race, it's basically a purple district now. Ballot harvesting, if you have those kind of numbers where you have a 21.6 turnout on absentee ballots, which are primarily from the Dems, then that will change the outcome of the election, period. And so that is why ballot harvesting is such an important issue now above any other time. And that's one reason why it's important to Wes in our office. It's one reason why it's important to Senator Gudger. And we hope that it's important to the rest of the legislature. And we hope that you will help us and everybody will help us make that even more clear. I think it will make itself clear. When you start seeing math like that, it's not hard to get to that spot and say, okay, yeah, that makes a difference. And when you look at District 2 in these new maps, with the exception of Montgomery, it's going to be primarily rural agriculture. That is exactly where some of these kind of counties are located, because you're going to see some of that same kind of touch. So ballot harvesting and trying to prevent ballot harvesting, this is Let me give you some examples of when we say ballot harvesting. There's a lot of different examples. Some of the more obvious is where someone pays, and I call it a bounty. So every time someone goes out and knocks on the door and says, here, let me give you an application, fill this out, this is for absentee ballot, whether they need it or not, whether they're going to vote at the polls or not, they're pushing that absentee ballot with the intention of influencing how they vote, obviously, as well. Well, that person, whether it be a consultant or a candidate or whoever that's helping that person run for office, is paying a bounty. They're paying $20 a ballot, or a vote, or $10 a vote, whatever it may be. Well, that's the bounty type. There's others that are literally paying more or less a salary to go out and do the same thing and just go knock on doors and trying to acquire people to come vote. There are more subtle ways, and so one of the ways, and you've seen some of this probably here, are the pre-filled applications that come through the mail. They're coming from out of state. They're not really usually coming from someone somewhere in state. And this is out-of-state influencers trying to have an impact on our races, and that is the kind of thing we're concerned about. They're paying people to try to influence our races. And specifically, when you've got a congressional seat where that one change from a Republican seat to a Dem seat is one of the 5 votes they need to turn over leadership in Congress, that's a big deal. So imagine how much money is going to come into that race to try to grab those votes. That's what we're worried about. And that type of pain to go after those votes is what we're concerned about. And I hope everybody's concerned about that. But I can tell you for a fact, Secretary of State Wes Allen is very concerned about that. I'm going to do this, and I'm doing this for a reason. I've got about 100 things we could talk about, but I also would like to leave time for questions. And I may not address the issue that's important to you, so we'll start with that. Bill?
Didn't we have a court case over Perry County over those ballots?
There was an investigation. It was before we came into office, and at the end of the day, I think for lack of evidence, it was dismissed. One of the problems is our existing state law really doesn't have a real good spot to pursue that kind of case. That's another reason for passing this law. There's really not anything real specific on our books that allows the prosecution to pursue these things. It's more difficult to make those cases. If we were to pass something like this, it will give them a tool that they can use.
How about the venue in the counties? I mean, you can't convict anybody in Perry County.
Well, so once again, if there's a conflict, then there's already something in play with the Attorney General to come in and take over the case, or take the case. And so that's there now, but nobody can do much with it if you don't have a law in place that allows a prosecutor to pursue it. And that's the difficulty we have right now. Yes, sir.
Seems like in the short term, the way to battle it from a Republican perspective is just for Republicans to do exactly what the Democrats do ballot harvesting, and then you'll see that come to an end when they see that it doesn't work for them anymore, or that it's, and that, I mean, that's what I see a lot with going on with Republicans today. We've gotten to the point where you have to get down in the mud with the Democrats and battle them. That's why we lose all these little problems that we have. It's because they won't get down in the mud with the Democrats because, oh, well, we're the better. We've passed that point now. Our country is going into the toilet. And unfortunately, it's time to jump in and battle the Democrats on their own turf.
So one of the things I look at, and this obviously is the first time we've heard that type of position, and there are other states that I think have decided to take that type of step. I would look at it a couple of ways. One is the Democrats have been doing this for decades, and the data shows that. Republicans, whether you, for better or worse, and I think it's for better, Republicans like voting on election day. We like going to the polls. I mean, even people that customarily you wouldn't think would, they look forward to going to the polls and casting that vote. So as a whole, it's not really ever been a Republican issue because frankly, Republicans go to the polls and they vote. Dems have been doing this for a long time. So they're very well established in it, very well practiced, very well trained. They've got people in place that they're used to doing it. And frankly, we don't. And so to try to say, hey, it's like taking a junior college team and staying safe. I mean, it may look like we're gonna have a good fight until you get into it, and then we're about to get our tail kicked. So I just don't think that's tactically, with what we have today here. I would say that I don't think the outcome would be what you would want it to be. If it were different, maybe a different approach, but, okay. I'm gonna go to the back room because I've been in the front, so, yes, ma'am.
This is such a reality. I ran 2 races in 75, 25 districts, Lowndes County, Wilcox County. I saw ballots hanging out of the boxes, all through the courthouse. We stayed out all night. They weren't even sealed. There were 25 people living at one address. I mean, they have this down to a science.
Yes, ma'am.
They have it to a flag sign, and it's real. And we play one way, they play another. Now, they were always nice to me. They never gave me any problems. They treated me with respect. So, had all kind of wonderful respect because Hank Sanders knew he was going to win. Because they couldn't lose him in the city. So, some big supporters had to take care of Hank. Hank takes care of everything else, and Wilcox Lowndes down with him.
Yes, ma'am.
So, it's real.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
we go to church and we talk and we sing to the choir, but reality the Democrats is there.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
they meet at night when we're asleep, and they figure out what to do. And they have every precinct, I mean, every precinct, how many voters in that precinct? We don't do enough data sometimes, and I'm a data person.
Well, and so you and I think a lot alike on that front.
But we really gotta just wake up
Yes, ma'am.
and realize that they don't play like we do. And our poll watchers, before myself, and my son ran 20 years ago, we didn't really have polls. And I had 17 precincts against that he ran. Which he ran against the city of California. Because sometimes we just have to step up. And doesn't mean we always win, but we sure learn a lot. And sometimes we make a difference. So just what he's saying is, just really take that heart and know that we just can't be just choir members. Such as the
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Mike, before Wes was sworn in, there was, as you'll recall, there was a couple of issues with Republican voters being drawn in the wrong district by the voter registrar. What are we doing to correct that for the next cycle, especially with respect to this last minute redrawing that you guys?
Well, first and foremost, training is one of the big factors that you have to focus on, and that will be next week in Tuscaloosa with the training next week. We've had trainings for existing registrars. I think we've had at least probably 5 or 6 since we came into office. So we are really been stepping up training. And frankly, it's important because some of this is a little confusing, and some of it takes a lot of reinforcement. Some of it can be intimidating, and so training is a big part of it. Now, beyond that, I also think one of the things that Wes did is there was some federal money that we had available that could be used for certain purposes. One of the things that what Secretary Allen did right out the gate was we went ahead and requested approval from the legislature for a contract for GIS. And they approved this contract for $1.2 million, where we are offering to pay every state that doesn't have GIS. We will pay the front end investment cost of it and pay for the first 2 years of their maintenance costs. Every county. So all the ones who don't have it, we're willing to front the bill on.
You know, we had some county voter registrars that were manually,
Most of them
some
are.
of it was just human error.
Correct. Most of them are still manually doing it. So, and we said, it's not just, I mean, it is human error, but also when you're looking at maps, hard maps that are not broken down very tight, I mean, it's not hard to make an error because you're not looking at real succinct lines. And so it's difficult. If you've ever been in a probate office and worked on these things, then it's obvious. Well, GIS it takes it to another level. It makes it very precise. You can literally see where lines are between one property to the next. It makes it very, very easy to operate. Now, they have to have training for that too, and so we're offering to pay that as well. So we've been putting that out there. We can't put it in all at one time. There's just too many counties that don't have it. So we're putting it in, over a period of 2 years. So the first wave, we've already started extending those counties that opportunity. Frankly, we're going to focus on the counties with this new map coming out that have divided county because they're gonna need the most. And so we're gonna really focus on those counties as a priority. And any other county that's had a shift will also get a priority. So we're gonna focus on that because of this congressional map change. We're gonna go with it first, and then we'll come in with the rest of the group after that. Yes, sir.
Are the naive about all this?
Yes, sir.
Are the voters on these absentee voters checked against voter registration lists?
Yes, sir. Yes,
They
sir.
are?
Yes, sir. When it comes into the absentee manager who reviews it, that's one of the things they review is at the time that those ballots are open. That's one of the things he's done, is they have to make sure that they are a registered voter. Now, if they're not, then there's different potential ways that can be done. He handles a provisional vote, it can be then check the voter, and to see if it was simply a mistake in registration or something of that nature. But the same ways we handle provisional ballot at the poll on election day, we handle the absentee ballot the same way. Yes, ma'am.
I have a real problem with absentee ballot managers, the circuit clerk in each county, who has no authority over them. For example, our absentee ballot manager does not notarize the ballots as they come in. They're all thrown into a box on the floor, and they're notarized later. That gives me some concern when the law specifically says they will be notarized as they are presented. Have another concern. We are, as a Republican Party, told that we might observe the opening of the absentee ballots and making sure that they are checked, as you were just asking, exactly what you were asking. Well, we don't get to do that in Montgomery County because they are open, thrown to the next person, down to the next person, down to the next person, and we don't have time to check them. They don't check them. So the upshot of this is for over 10 years, when I've reported this, no one can do anything about it because the absentee ballot manager does not have any supervision. The absentee ballot manager is the top of the line for how absentee ballots are managed. That's a problem. Hopefully, somebody can figure out something to do about it, so I'm just throwing that out there, that
Yes, ma'am.
maybe that's something we need to keep on our radar.
I can give you at least one example since we've been in office, since we were this year. We have had, and specifically, I remember one registrar that was clearly violating law multiple ways, multiple times. We did investigate it. It was clear that it was occurring. So that was within the purview of the Secretary of State's office, and that person was terminated. And so I can say that we are looking into things like that. Now, that was law that applies to a registrar. Obviously, it's a little different than it applies to an absentee ballot manager. So sometimes we will work within the law allows us to, and we obviously can't step beyond that. And so that's where the legislature might have to come in and amend the law or help that a little bit. But yes, ma'am, we are very open to that. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
It's said that Alabama has some of the toughest absentee ballot laws in the nation. Laws are great, but if they're not being followed, they're not so good. So it sounds like what you're saying, with the district lines being redrawn, we're going to have lots of issues going into this coming primary season. It's almost like you're deliberately delaying getting these lines drawn to create more problems for your staff and for people across the state. So I'm wondering, how are you going to tighten the screws and compel people to use legitimate reasons for voting absentee, that they're either sick or they're out of, their employer's sending them out of state, whatever reason, and enforcing the signatures, enforcing the notaries, otherwise rejecting them. I mean, there's got to be some red lights to stop the frauds that's going on before they happen. Because finding out afterwards doesn't change anything. You got to stop it before that.
Right. So one of the things that, when I came to the legislature in 2010, we did actually pass, within about a 3 year time, a significant number of election reform laws. And we passed it before it was the thing to do, before Republicans nationwide were really doing those kind of laws. Now, a lot of the states in the nation are actually trying to pass exactly what we passed years ago. And so we do have some of the most secure election code in place compared to other states. We actually do. The one weakness that we do see, and that's one reason why we are going after it, is the absentee application and the absentee ballot, but it's really the absentee application. That's really where the problem starts. And so, yes, sir, we are targeting that issue. We do see that as a weakness that we would like to remedy. We are trying to educate the members, both the House and Senate, as much as we can. It passed through the House last regular session relatively easily. It made it through committee and passed in committee in the Senate, and it just never got that final vote. I can tell you from my time in the legislature that that is not unusual, especially when you're dealing with something more controversial. It can be a little frightening sometimes for members to just make that final step without learning more. So one of the things that we do is that we're giving them more. We're giving them as much data and as much information as we can give them. We're literally visiting them, one at a time to make sure we can answer any specific questions they might have. Some had concern for what if my mom, needs help and so and so. Well, we actually do have provisions in this bill that would address those very issues, and they were there last year. But we need to go over it with more clarity, so we're doing that. That's part of the process. I learned that when I first came in. If every bill that came to the legislature passed, it would be a total mess in the state. You do not want every bill passing that goes to this file. When I was in the legislature, and I made a campaign promise in 2010 that at first I regretted, and later I just became known for it. While I was in the legislature for 3 terms, I never voted for a bill in committee or on the floor that I had not read before I voted. So I've read thousands of bills, and I can tell you that I've seen so many bad bills that you would never want to pass. So you need to have some intensity, some focus of review, especially on something that's a big deal. And so I don't take that as a problem or an insult. I take that as, well, we need to tighten it up. And that's what we're doing. So we're working on this bill. We started working on it within a few weeks of the regular session ending the last session. We're not waiting till the next session starts. We've been working on it from the beginning.
Well, do you have teeth in the bill? Like, do you go
Yes,
after
sir.
circuit clerks?
So the most minor violation is a Class A misdemeanor. If you receive money for a ballot, or someone pays someone, so that the bounty hunter, he receives it $10 per absentee application he brings in. That's a Class C felony. The person who paid that person that $10, if we can prove that, it's a Class B felony. We put it right up there with the ethics violations in the same type of punishment range. So yes, sir, it's got pretty big teeth. Class B felony is 2 to 20 years in prison. Let me go here and I'll come over. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Of the 3 maps, the first map has 7 split counties. The maps 2 and 3 have 6 split counties, which is the same number that the 2023 special session map had. It also had 6. Yes, sir.
Two questions. One, in the past couple election cycles, have you ever had districts that had more votes cast than registered voters? And then can you elaborate on different topics? Overseas members, there was I don't know what it is called, but it's something to where they can cast 2 ballots at the same time, where one, if it's runoff difference, there's just no time.
That's correct. That's correct. And it's only available for the overseas. It's not available within our state.
But it is in the world. It is something that can be done now.
Yes, sir. That's available for overseas. It's for that very reason, is that there's not enough turnaround time and it's runoff. And so, yes, sir, that's available. But as far as your first question, honestly, I've never looked at that kind of data. I've never researched that, so I would have to look at that to give an answer. So I'm not trying to evade you. I just have never looked at that.
What was the question, Mike, that you're responding to right now?
If people had voted in a particular district, the number of people voted were more than people that were registered in that district.
In Uniontown, 8 years ago, they had more than 50 registered.
Sounds like a flag. Yes, sir. That sounds like a flag. Yes, ma'am.
The bill you were just talking about that got hung up in the legislature and didn't pass, is that the same as I think that was about allocations?
Yes, ma'am.
But
Yes,
that's not
ma'am.
the same as the harvesting, or does that cover
same bill, so when it came in the House and passed, it was written a certain way. But with the Senate, as the Senate does like to do, they like to massage the bills a little bit, make some subtle changes, maybe 10 pages. And so they massage it in committee. That is not unusual, and frankly, because of my experience, we actually left some things to be touched so that they would touch them and feel like they had massaged them, so.
So both things are covered in the bill that Senator Gudger?
Yes, ma'am. So what we did is we took the bill that cleared committee in the Senate, the final version that cleared committee, and that is the bill we're starting with this season. So the Senate has already approved it in committee.
And second quick question.
Sure.
Isn't there another step that's anticipated with U.S. Supreme Court on the new congressional maps? Or is it pretty certain that what the three-judge panel does is what we're stuck with?
Right, so, yeah, they actually came out with an order today, and this was there was a motion to stay that was filed by the state on both the Milligan and the Castro cases. And the Supreme Court has a one-sentence response. The application for stay presented to Justice Thomas and by him referred to the court is denied. And that is the one-sentence order on both of those cases. So we are done on that. The only other appeal that is available at this point is after the final hearing on the Marist case. That is likely after the election, and that's why it's not going to have any impact on what happens with these maps. So that's the next opportunity.
So one of these three maps is what we'll be voting.
Yes, ma'am. And for us, like I said earlier, the sooner the better, because it's going to mean some changes. And some of these changes, and I'll give you an example. There's one county that in map 2, it's a clean line across. It's a county split, but it's a clean line across. And it looks like something that wouldn't be as difficult for us to maybe resolve. In map 3, honestly, it looks like a gerrymandered cut. I mean, it swirls all over the place. It just looks very awkward. Those are the kind of worst case scenarios the registrar sees when you see a split county that looks like they got a little inebriated and started driving around the county. And one of those maps does have that kind of line.
I want to point out that all three maps, Barry Moore loses District 2. He will no longer be congressman in District 2. He will have to run against Jerry Carl in District 1 because he lives in what will now be in all three maps, District 1.
And that is accurate. So, and it's actually said both, its maps show it, but it's also in the verbiage of the report as well, that they do live both in District 1, so in all three maps. Yes, ma'am.
We've only lived in Alabama 9 years. Do you know how old this election process and procedure in Alabama is?
The more modern version, once again, when I came in 2010, we made some substantial election law changes that occurred then. And those changes we made dealt with election security on election day. Those were the things we were looking at that time. And those ended up being the things that nationally all the states are now trying to get to. So we've actually been ahead of the curve on election security on election day. Our weakness, as I've said, is on our absentee ballot application, and that's what I've been speaking on. So our modern version started probably into effect 2014, probably in that range.
But the legislature could start drawing new maps of law, huh?
Well, the court gave the legislature the opportunity with a special, and every part of the law on this kind of issue says that the preference is always for the people through their representatives to draw their own lines, draw their own maps. And so the court did give our legislature that option. The court then came back and said that that's not going to work. That doesn't meet the requirements that were required by the Supreme Court and by the three-judge panel. And so because of that, then they basically stopped that plan, and they'll come back with the plan they're going to pick. And so at this point, we are going to be using a map. One of these three maps will be our map.
For this cycle.
Yes, sir.
For the next cycle, you can draw another one right now.
I'm not saying that you technically probably could. I'm just saying that reality is I'm not sure it'll do us any real good. And people who know me will tell you I don't make up stuff. I don't, because blow hot air, I just tell you, okay? Yes, ma'am.
Does the Secretary of State or do the probate judges check the registered voters to get rid of the ones who have died?
So, and I'm so glad you asked that question. We actually, just put in place last week a system, that is an Alabama system for checking our registered voters and constantly cleaning up our list. One of the things that we are doing is we are, and honestly, it's a much more in-depth process than you would have ever expected, but our nation has a death index that is a nationwide index that if someone, so the people that die in our state, our public health office gives that information. And so we can immediately remove them from our voting rolls, our registered, people registered. But if someone from the state were to go get surgery in Atlanta or Texas or be killed in a wreck in some other state, then we don't have access to that, we don't have that data. We don't have a way of doing that, at least through our public health office. The way you do it is you work through the National Death Index that will then, that's the way we're getting that information. So we've been working with the federal government to have our own contract in place to get that information. It has been a lot of hoops. You have to be certified, which I thought was weird that a Secretary of State from one of the 50 states has to be certified to be able to get that data, but we are having to go through lots of hoops. And so we're about through that process, and we should be getting that data hopefully very soon. And then yes, ma'am, we'll be cleaning up the people who die outside of our state who are residents here. We'll have that data as well. So yes, ma'am, we do remove people that pass away, and they are removed immediately upon us verifying that they are deceased. Now, if you move to another location, then there's another process, and federal law is what dictates this process. And so it's a 4-year process. So when we find out some information, whether it be that they get another driver's license in another state, so we are working with ALEA in our state, our law enforcement agency, that when they get information from, say, Tennessee, that someone from this state shows they've just got a driver's license in Tennessee, well, typically that means they now reside in Tennessee. And so when we get that information, we then send a postcard to that person at their last posted address in our state, saying that we show that you appear to now be a resident of Tennessee because of this. If there's a mistake or there's anything wrong, we temporarily kind of put you in a suspended status in our state, that you'll have to come and get and verify that you're still here. And if you don't verify that you still reside here after 4 years, then we can pull you off our rolls. And that's federal law. We can't do it instantly. That's just not how it works. But after 4 years, then we pull them off. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Yeah, I have a question, a suggestion at the same time, to make voting day a national day. National day where everybody will be watching those places where we go, because I'm living there and I don't see, that's what we do, because we need to have gurus in the computer checking over, all over, 1, 2, 3, before they came into the line. I said, let me see your ID. I mean, let's see what place you are going to vote. And then, okay, I mean, give all your information that you have to have the right to go and vote there. Because we get all those illegals coming in, and we are going to get big trouble with the Democrats giving them the right to vote.
So one of the things, and it's kind of speaking to what you're talking about, the federal government is now, ICE is now giving ID cards to illegals, and I don't know how frequently they're doing it. I guess they're doing it in mass now. And so one of the concerns was, well, would that be something that can be used for somebody to come legally to Alabama because they have a federal ID? Which one of the accepted forms of ID in our code, in our law, is a federal ID. No, because that particular federal ID also confirms that they are not legal citizens in the United States, which means they're not a legal citizen in Alabama. So no, because of that fact, they are not legal to vote. That's something that the Secretary is aware of. We became aware of that not too long back. But that's part of the training that registrars, or not registrars, but registrars too. The election poll workers, registrars, everybody will be trained on that. That if they see those ICE IDs, that's actually verification they're not a citizen, and therefore they're not allowed to vote and not allowed to register. so we are touching that. As far as the national projects, I'll let you talk with, when y'all get one of the congressmen from up here, I'm gonna let y'all go after them with that. But on the state level, there's really little we can do to impact that from our office. That would take somebody to hire them at the federal level.
I do believe that we need more people. Besides the people that is, registered, the people that is voting, we need people on the line. Before they get to the person that is checking the voting, check, let me see where is your ID. We got to put that on, right there. And then to check if these same people don't go and vote someplace else.
Well, we are checking that. One of the things that we have started in the system that I'm referring to, in fact, when you start walking out, I've laid about 3 things somewhere in front. One is about Avid, and that's one of the flyers you'll see. It's the Alabama Voter Integrity Database. And that's something that we just came out with last week to replace what was previously used in the state called ERIC, which was it ended up being a database that some of the information was questionable, some of it might have been sold, we were not in control of it. It was worrisome on a lot of levels, including it also had some underage data that was made available, and that was a problem. So we got out of it for a lot of reasons. But we also figured immediately that we need to work on something that was an Alabama solution, not to be worrying or paying somebody else out of state to do our work. And so that's what our secretary came up with. So that's actually one of the prime things we worked on when we first came into office. But one of the components of that is that we've established memorandum of understandings with every one of the states around us. Even when our state was using the ERIC system, only 2 of the states that were contiguous to us were part of ERIC. So we were still not getting information about people that were voting in 2 different locations. We were not getting all the information because ERIC didn't have all the information. We now have MOUs, memorandum of understandings, with all the states around us. We've already been getting data from Tennessee. We've already found roughly 8,500 that we've discovered have been doing this. So we're already working on those. So yes, ma'am, we're actively working on that. We've come up with our own system to do that. We are negotiating with. We started because it made sense. You start with the states around you because that's where most people are moving, are the contiguous states. But then we're moving out from there. But you had to start with those ones first.
How about fingerprints? Before they, if the fingerprints going in, and they tell, hey, this guy already did it someplace else. Can we use the fingerprints? Check people, do it once?
Right, and honestly, you're the first person to ask me that question, so I don't really have an answer for that one. I'll be glad to look at it, but I don't have an answer for that. I do know that, I think once we get this extra information where we can verify if people are voting in 2 different states, I mean, clearly that's a way for us to work on that and prevent that from happening. And I think also finding out they have driver licenses in other states. So we're working on all these methods to identify those kind of people. And we're working through that. So I think we're getting there.
If we have a national day, we can have gurus in computers. We need the people badly to be just watching, not the people that regularly is there, but people that are, fast.
I'll tell you the only thing I worry about when you look at going totally federal, totally national, is frankly, we do have more secure laws in our state than a lot of states around, and it's because it's important to us. And so my worry is if we went to a more federal program, national program, well, it's going to be who's in power who dictates the security measures. Well, if the Democrats are in power, then frankly, we may never get back because they're going to make it as lax as possible, and everybody will be voting whether they're legal citizens or not. So to some degree, I like the fact that we're having some control over that and that we are monitoring those kind of problems.
Thank you.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you so much. I did let this meeting run over because we had such good information from the general counsel that I wanted you all to hear it. I want you to be sure that you check about the mobile app. We didn't get to that point, but the mobile app has been done away with. People can no longer register by the mobile app. You want to mention that real quickly?
The mobile app was more about perception. The mobile app actually links you back to our webpage. Our webpage is mobile friendly. So we were paying $12,000 for you to feel like you were getting something that was really about perception. It really didn't gain anything. So we would rather you just go ahead and go to our webpage and you can process working through that. QR code, like every one of the handouts is a QR code. It's a way that if you do need to register for an absentee application, you just put your phone on that, use the QR code, it'll make a link directly to our webpage, and then it'll fill out that information. It'll then go to the board of registrars where you're supposed to vote, or registrar, and it will connect you to your absentee ballot application. And so we've made it very easy. No one has to do anything. We even put that QR code on our webpage. So all you gotta do is literally go to our page, put the QR code on there, and just fill in the information. We made it as easy as possible.
And the Secretary of State and his staff has been commended. Last week, there's a new four-prong, what do you call it, bill? Four-prong, effort.
And there's a handout on
And there's a handout you need to read, what he has done, what they have done to make voters safe in our state. 4 separate things that this Secretary of State has implemented, and it's excellent. So you need to get that information and understand and tell people when we're talking about voter fraud that this Secretary of State is working very, very hard in his staff to get this voter fraud taken care of. That's an excellent beginning and really well done. Capital City Republican Club will meet. Judge Chad Hansen, who just had to leave, they'll meet this week at 11:30 at the Montgomery Country Club. Men and women are welcome. Chad Hansen will be one of the speakers. Julie Beard and Andrew Sismansky will speak, so you'll learn about your recently elected officials. The Republican Club of Central Alabama will meet Tuesday, October 17th. Mark this down because the speaker will be Wes Allen, and you can learn more about voter fraud. The Montgomery County Republican Executive Committee meeting is October 19th at 6 p.m. at Faulkner Cafeteria. You are all welcome. And most importantly, right at this moment, because of time, since it's the Lincoln Reagan dinner on October 12th, and we'd like everybody to purchase tickets to that. But also, I want you to look at the quilt back there that is going up for silent auction. Our county chairman, Connie Greer, made the quilt. We're going to sell auction tickets. We'll sell them today. $5 for tickets. That's an excellent Liberty Star quilt. I am gonna let you speak. But I'm gonna make sure y'all got the highlights of this. And then Jeff Evans, who's in charge of the Lincoln Reagan dinner, y'all, you gotta come out to this dinner. Barry Moore has been a congressman for 2 years. He's worked hard for us. And doesn't have a chance to run again in District 2. So please come to our dinner and let him know that we appreciate what he has done the last 2 years. Jeff Evans, who is in charge of our dinner, is going to speak to you now and tell you a little bit more about it.
Okay, we really would love for you to come out if you would love to. We've got tickets left. Please buy a ticket. If you'd like to sponsor a table, we have some table sponsorships available. Please come out. It'll be a wonderful evening of discourse with fellow conservatives, and I think you'll have a great time. Barry's a wonderful speaker. You'll get an opportunity to chat with Barry if you haven't met him before. Wonderful guy. So please come out, see Barry. We're gonna have a silent auction. My wife's been working tirelessly on that, and there's a lot of cool items for the silent auction, and several of you in this room have donated to make the silent auction possible. Thank you for that. But please do. You can see my wife in the back. She's the treasurer of the organization, and you can get the tickets from her. And the tickets are $75. Thursday, October 12th. RSA Plaza. For those of you, most of you in here probably realize there's about 3 or 4 RSA buildings downtown. Make sure you get the right one. RSA Plaza. It's kind of in the shadow of the Capitol building. It's not the tall building, and it's not the RSA Activity Center. It's the RSA Plaza. But please, we'd like to see everyone of you there.